Wanda gave me the most moment in this entire movie, and my entire theater gasped when she did this. And this is so early in the movie when basically she's in that. Hey guys, welcome back to the video, and this video is my spoiler review and discussion for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So sit back, grab a snack, because today we're going to be discussing all things Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, as well as a little special cameo in this video. But we'll get to that soon, because in this video I will be doing my full spoiler review and basically just a discussion video, kind of like what I did for Zack Snyder's Justice League, Spider-Man No Way Home, where I just have a bunch of points about the movie that I've written down, and it's kind of just going to be me talking about the movie. It's going to barely be edited, and it's just going to be me spewing my thoughts out. This video will be containing all things spoilers for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So if you haven't already watched the movie, you can check out my spoiler-free initial reaction, which is linked in the description down below. And I'm not going to be doing an ending explained or post-credit scene breakdown in this video because I already made a separate video on that, and that's also linked in the description down below. Also, if you guys don't want to miss any of my upcoming Multiverse of Madness content, make sure to hit that subscribe button and notifications on. Both always see more time. Let's get into my spoiler discussion and review for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Also, don't mind if I'm looking on the side here. I do have a list of every single thing I want to get through in this video, as there are a lot of points. But starting it off, I do kind of just want to mention the bigger story in the MCU, kind of what we're going to be getting after this movie. Again, don't want to go too deep into like the ending explain type of stuff, but I think it's very interesting the direction the MCU is going in, and I personally really like it. I'm one that enjoys the sorcery and magic side of the MCU a lot more than the grounded side. Like, I love obviously Spider-Man, Kate Bishop, Captain America. I used to like that a lot, but especially after 2016's Doctor Strange, I've been more obsessed with like the sorcery side of stuff and all that kind of those kinds of ideas. And I think the MCU's really headed in that direction, especially after the Darkhold stuff. You know, we know obviously Wanda dies at the end of this movie. I'll be talking about her more in this video later, but she dies in the movie. I don't necessarily think she's actually dead. Again, you can check out my ending explained if you want my full theory on that, but I don't think she's necessarily dead. I think the magic side of the MCU is still going to live on, and I think that the multiversal side of the MCU is where it's headed, especially with Secret Wars. I did find this really cool video. I think it's by Screen Rant, and they have this awesome explanation of how this could lead into another just massive Avengers level event with Doctor Strange in the middle of it. And that's all perfect to me, because personally, Doctor Strange is like my favorite character in the entire MCU right now, and I can't wait to see his future in the MCU and how he impacts all of it. And knowing that the MCU is going in a multiversal direction, that makes me very, very excited for it. Now, I do want to talk more about Doctor Strange's character specifically, but before we get into that, I do have to mention my biggest issue with the movie, which I haven't mentioned in any of my previous videos. I mentioned it slightly in my initial reaction, but that has to be the pacing of this movie. I think the pacing of the movie is really good, but I feel like towards the second half of the movie, it gets a little bit too quick for where the story is headed. I think that the movie needed an extra maybe 5 to 10 minutes to kind of just let us flesh out some more emotional moments, because this movie moves really fast and I really enjoyed that. But I think at times it takes away from the emotional aspect of a character that's already like not that emotionally fleshed out in Doctor Strange. I don't think Doctor Strange is the most deep character in the MCU by any means. I just think he's the most interesting person. You know, he's a surgeon. He got into a car accident. That's what makes him his own hero. That's what gives him his power. It's all through basically the belief that he can do it, and that's what the first Doctor Strange movie does. Doctor Strange 1, in my opinion, is top 10 MCU. I'll probably be re-ranking the MCU movies either this weekend or after Thor Love and Thunder, but I'll decide on that later. Not too sure yet, but Doctor Strange 1, top 10 MCU in my opinion, and I think this movie is going to make the top 10. I'm going to rewatch it before I actually go ahead and make it solidified where it is in the MCU, but as a whole, you know, this movie is great. I just think pacing is the core of its issues, and the runtime, it's very short. Again, just 5-10 minutes. Many people are saying 20 to 30 extra minutes. I think that's too long. Even movies like Eternals and Spider-Man No Way Home, I felt the runtime just a little bit. I think this movie, I felt the runtime, but in the best way possible. This movie felt like 2 hours and 30 minutes to me personally, just because of how much they moved around and how many different sets and all that kind of stuff they went through. But I think it works here, and I think that just another 5 to 10 minutes of maybe a little bit more character moments or a little bit more emphasis on a certain scene or something like that, I think it would have made the movie much better. But again, as a whole, I still really like the movie. I just think the pacing is its core of its issues, and honestly, I don't really have many other issues. Other than that, it's mainly just nitpicks. I think the score is fairly mediocre, especially compared to the first movie. I think that individually, like when I listen to the score by itself, it is on Spotify. I gave it a listen yesterday, or this, like right after I finished watching the movie on the way home, and I thought it was a really good score. It's just when it was implemented in the movie, it didn't really feel like like that cool, and it didn't feel like it really stood out or anything like that. For example, especially going off of the movie like The Batman, where Michael Giacchino's score just really elevated everything. I felt like the score in this movie was just there. Maybe that's good. Maybe people wanted to fit in. But I like the score to be kind of something that stands out from the movie, and it really separates the movie from other things. And this one didn't really do that. I had very high expectations with Danny Elfman returning with Sam Raimi, like he did with the original Spider-Man movies. You know, the original Doctor Strange movie had a great score, and it really elevated everything to a whole other level. This movie, the score didn't necessarily do that for me, so that's kind of why I'm disappointed with it. But another thing I want to mention before I get into like the character stuff is the Illuminati cameos, because I haven't really mentioned that. I haven't talked about it in any of my content yet. But Illuminati cameos, you know, I thought they were all really good. The cameos that we got were John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, the guy who played Black Bolt, which I have no idea who that even is because no one even gives a shit about the Inhumans. And then we have Captain Carter, Professor X, Monica Rambeau, or Maria Rambeau, and obviously Mordo, which was the variant of the Mordo that we already had. That's another complaint I have about this movie is we didn't get to see Mordo. And honestly, I thought they would probably build him up for the third movie. I think the MCU is going a little bit bigger than just going back to Mordo, unless Mordo has some huge connection. We heard Strange say something along the lines like, oh, Mordo kind of like was his friend. He kind of got him into the Kamar-Taj and all that kind of stuff, and then he turned his back, all that kind of stuff. We got a little bit of information about it, but we never got to see that specific Mordo, which was kind of heartbreak to me because I like that character and I was excited to see his future. In my most anticipated parts for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, the video I dropped a few days ago, I talked about how I'd like to see just a little bit more of Mordo and maybe setting him up for the third movie. But seeing the post-credits scene of this movie and how they're going to the dark dimension and how everything is just going up a whole other scale level after this movie and not going down back a scale level like I thought they would, it's just, there's really little hope for me now to see Mordo like that again and kind of see this growth of Mordo and Strange together throughout his trilogy. I thought we would get that. I don't really think we're going to get that anymore, so I am fairly disappointed by that. But back to Illuminati cameos, I think all of them were great. I actually had a really fun time with all of them. I'll talk more about the fight itself later in this video, but my biggest problem is why the hell is Black Bolt there? Like, I thought the way he died was super cool, super gruesome, and I think it was the right choice in order to show Wanda's powers, but like, you could have chosen anyone else, like Tom Cruise, superior Iron Man. Like, come on. I do think John Krasinski is phenomenal as Mr. Fantastic, and I really hope that he's the main MCU's Mr. Fantastic. I don't know necessarily if it's going to happen or not. I hope it happens, and I have very high hopes that the castings will be really good because John Krasinski's so good, but maybe they could have just been doing it for like fan casting purposes and like kind of fan service type of thing, since they knew that he was being fan casted as it a lot, and since it's the multiversal version, it's a variant, you don't necessarily have to keep him. But I was also thinking deep down in my heart, I was like, maybe they're just keeping this as like a test, you know? If the fans like it, they'll keep him. If they don't, they have another casting. Maybe that's something that's going to happen. I hope that's the case because I absolutely love John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic. We have Maria Rambeau. She was absolutely awesome. Just the fights as a whole, they were all super cool. The way that Captain Carter was killed was absolutely insane. The way she was like absolutely just like impaled by her own shield. It was so sick. I knew she was going to say that I can do this all day. Knew that line was going to come eventually. But my favorite kill out of all of them has to be the Professor X one because, I don't know, it felt it felt a lot more symbolic and it didn't necessarily just, okay, I've heard this relation to the scene where people are saying it's like that Invincible scene from the end of episode 1 where Omni-Man just goes in and destroys the entire like league of superheroes. The people relate that to this one and I do agree, but I think what separates this a lot and what makes it feel a little bit more emotional is like that slowed down moment where Professor X kind of goes and he sees the symbolism of Wanda trapped under a bunch of rocks, and then like the zombie Wanda comes up behind him and like snaps his neck. It's just so sick. It's so crazy. It's so insane, and I absolutely just love the way they played that entire fight out. But I think now we can get to Doctor Strange himself. So basically, I think this is phenomenal. Like, I really just love what they did with his character in this movie. There's some specific things that I want to go over. Like, the biggest thing is like the music fight that we had near the end of the movie. That was just absolutely awesome. That's one of my favorite MCU fights, and it's crazy because I think Doctor Strange is in like two of my top 3 MCU fights, which would be the Thanos versus Doctor Strange fight in Infinity War, this music fight, I don't even know what the third one is, but still, it's just absolutely awesome. Maybe it's probably Civil War. I'll probably put the big battle in Civil War in my top 3 somewhere, but the music fight, it was just really, really good. It felt like it was the perfect blend of everything. Like, it felt like well paced, but it also felt like super magic-y, you know? It felt really like, it felt the most sorceress like thing that we've ever had in the MCU, if that makes sense. it felt like real, like true sorcery. Like it felt like super creative, and it felt like Sam Raimi really took the helm on that one. It felt like something that like regularly in the MCU that we wouldn't necessarily get, because, you know, in Infinity War, for example, we have this sorcery stuff where he kind of duplicates himself and he can do these flashy light stuff and all that kind of thing, those kinds of things. But here it felt like it was true creative power going into it. Kind of, I mean, literally, like he was throwing music symbols and music signs at Sinister Strange. Like that's the most creative thing that I think we've ever seen in the entire MCU. And I think that's why it's one of the best fights. And I think it's just one of the best moments in the entire movie, if not the greatest fight. I think the Kamar-Taj fight was also great, where he kind of lets those like dragon things out of his hands and Wanda chops their heads off. That's also really, really cool. I think the gutter scene where they're about to get to that book, and this is right before Wanda captures America Chavez, where they're going through this gutter thing, and Wanda's basically like going zombie mode, honestly. And Strange basically like opens up, he basically like presses down on the ground, and the whole entire gutter goes black. And Wanda just pops out of nowhere and just scares the absolute shit out of me. I was literally about to poo my pants at that moment. Like I was so afraid for my life. Like I did not, and Sam Raimi knew what he was doing there, because it was like zooming into the characters' faces. Everything was going super slow-mo, and then Wanda just popped out of nowhere, out of the darkness. It was just such a well-crafted shot, in my opinion, and I really, really liked that scene. Just overall, these super suspenseful scenes with Doctor Strange were the most creative ones, in my opinion, and that's where Sam Raimi really, really shined. I think the variants of Strange were also pretty well utilized in this movie. I thought they were going to have a bigger like part of this movie, but I like the way that they brought back the other Strange, the variant of Strange, the one with the ponytail. I keep forgetting his name, but I like the way that they brought him back in this movie, and how at the end they used his dead body in the MCU universe, and so he could dreamwalk in the universe. That was really, really cool to me. And just the souls thing where he had to end up like conquering the souls, that was also so sick. And just the way that they take all of these smaller horrific elements and they bring it all together to make something that's very usable and that feels normal. Like you wouldn't expect Doctor Strange to be basically puppeteering a zombie Strange in the final battle, but it works. And I think that all of these small aspects of Doctor Strange's character, and he's literally, I mean, he's in a completely different universe in the final battle, and it still all works. I think we just have to commemorate Sam Raimi for that. Like, we have to appreciate his storytelling. You know, obviously Michael Waldron, the writer, he also did Loki, absolutely phenomenal writer, and all that credit goes to him. But I think just visually being able to tell this story between two different universes at once and making it feel like a regular cohesive final battle, that's something that I've never seen before. And I'm very excited to see the future of the multiversal stuff, especially if we have writers that are similar to Michael Waldron and directors that have a similar, not directing style, but just a different flair than what the MCU normally has. Seeing a combination of those two things would just be absolutely perfect, especially on a super big scale for like movies like Secret Wars or something like that. Like I think it would be very interesting to see a director with a lot of flair take on that many characters and writing as complex and as well done as Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Now, again, the writing itself, like story-wise, the story is very basic. I will say that, but I'm saying the way that they balance all these different aspects, like in terms of that specifically, the writing is just really, really good in my opinion. Now, before I move on to talk about the Scarlet Witch, obviously, I did want to mention Christine Palmer, because she had a lot more of a role in this movie than I thought she would, and I really liked the variant that they chose to pair her with Strange. She lost her Strange, and this Strange lost his Christine Palmer to another person, obviously. So I thought that was really, really cool. It was really well done. And again, it's just the matter of the writing piecing together these perfectly like aligned pieces and kind of bringing everything together really, really well. I also really like the beginning of this movie. I think this kind of gives me an excuse to talk about the first 20 minutes. It was absolutely awesome. It started off with the bang whenever we saw Defender Strange and America Chavez kind of running through the multiverse in the first monster that Scarlet Witch sent to them. And number one, I will say I will be talking about America Chavez later in this video, so stay tuned for that. Obviously, you know, I can't go past her because she was absolutely phenomenal in this movie. But just seeing these things happen so fast, and then we completely slowed down to Strange going to Christine Palmer's wedding, and that's the first time that with the question in general of "Are you happy?" gets brought up, and Christine Palmer is the one that brings it up. And at the end of the movie, when Christine Palmer and Strange have to basically leave each other so Strange can go back to the Earth 616 universe, it's just such a heartfelt moment. And it starts off with Christine Palmer asking Strange, "Are you happy?" And then Strange asking Wong, "Are you happy?" And them kind of reminiscing over this moment where it's like, you have to take advantage of the universe that you're in and what stuff you're given. And with that being said, it just, I don't know, it's such a great arc for Strange, even though it's so minimal, if that makes sense. Like, it's such a basic question, are you happy? But it leads to so much development for Strange and so much understanding for Strange himself that I think it just works. Like, having this, again, like I always say, a basic story, a basic premise, if executed to perfection, it can end up being absolutely phenomenal. And I think that's what this movie does best. It takes these simple ideas of "Are you happy?" and just like literally basic feelings, and it turns it into a story that is very interesting. And I obviously think that's due to the flair of the director, the writing by Michael Waldron, and just the character and the possibilities of the character of Doctor Strange in this multiverse that is literally going into madness. Again, just all these small little pieces of characters and motives and questions asked. Everything comes together so well to bring us this big movie called Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and that's why I think it works so well. Another reason, obviously, that it works really well, this is a stupid transition, Scarlet Witch. She's absolutely awesome. I love Scarlet Witch in this movie. I will say, it did not feel like her and Strange had the same amount of screen time, but if I'm not mistaken, they absolutely did. If I'm not mistaken, they literally had the same exact amount of screen time. And that's cool, you know, that I'm not one to complain. I think it's very interesting to have the villain and the protagonist have the same amount of screen time, and I'm not against it because it didn't feel like they had the same amount of screen time, and that works in its favor and at its fault. The main fault that it has, in my opinion, is that Wanda, in my opinion, is not like I think she's a top tier MCU villain, but I wouldn't even call her top 3. I'll probably be doing an MCU villains ranked or something along those lines very soon, so stay tuned for that. But Wanda is just, and I hate to use this complaint, she's too powerful for me to, I guess, sympathize with her as a villain. Number one, the sympathizing part, like, she has some crazy motives. Like, she's basically just killing to kill at this point. Her motives make absolutely no sense. No one agrees with her except for herself. And even at the end, she disagrees with herself. So that just shows it. But I'll be talking about her ending and stuff a little bit later and talking about Scarlet Witch. But I think that her character alone, like, Wanda gave me the most oh shit moment in this entire movie. And my entire theater gasped when she did this. And this is so early in the movie when basically she's in the apple field with Strange. And she basically tells Strange that, "Oh, America Chavez can come to my place and I can take care of her here." And then Strange realizes that he never actually told her name. That was absolutely insanity. And then Wanda basically turns the entire apple field around her into these like ruins, kind of broken down type of area. And it's just so well done. It was the biggest oh shit moment of the entire movie, in my opinion. And it was literally in like the first 30 minutes. It was so cool. And Strange was so flabbergasted at that moment that me and the audience, I was like, what the hell is going to happen here? Like, Strange is going to say no, obviously, to handing over Chavez. And then I was like, okay, this is the story. We have our story. And like I always say, basic story with perfect execution creates a phenomenal movie. And I think that's what this really did. It set up our motives. It set up our villain, and it set up what the goal is right in the first 30 minutes. And it did it so quickly. It did it so simplistically. And it all, again, came together really well. And I think, like, just the way that they pull it off as well. I think the score in this part of the movie especially paid off. I think later in the movie felt a little bit more generic. Didn't really feel like it did anything special to the movie. But here, when the entire apple field transforms, and you could really just feel it. Like, it was in the aura of the theater where everyone was just like, holy crap, Wanda is evil. And I've also seen a lot of criticism saying that Wanda's descent into darkness was way too quick. She was descending into darkness all of WandaVision. So I don't know what you guys are talking about if that is your complaint. I have this theory about Vision as well, which I talked about in my ending explain, but I do think Vision is the one that'll be there to save her at the end of, from the end of this movie, whenever she's like crumbled down. And obviously, you know, we didn't see her die, so I don't think she's dead. So, but before we get into more of her death type of stuff, I do want to mention like her mutants, her twins, all that kind of stuff. Honestly, I don't know like what the move is with the mutants in the MCU anymore, with the X-Men specifically, because number one, we know Magneto isn't her dad. We learned that in WandaVision. We know that she gets her powers from the Mind Stone, not necessarily like an X gene type of thing, and that could be what they're going for. Maybe the X gene is like people that were exposed to the Mind Stone and stuff like that. That could be the route they're going in, but I think they would have done something in this movie about it if they were going to do it. And I sadly just don't think it's happening. Maybe they could make the X-Men an alternate universe and bring it in. I think this movie was the one opportunity for them to do it, and they didn't end up doing it. I'm not necessarily saying I'm mad about it, because I'm not. I think if they put it into this movie, especially with this 2 hour and 6 minute runtime, it would have really just docked even more points for it. But I'm just saying, with the fact that it wasn't in this movie, I don't think we're getting it anytime soon, especially with the MCU going in the multiversal direction. I think that they can be introduced through the multiverse, maybe in like a Secret Wars or something like that, or maybe like the precursor to Secret Wars, when we see a bunch of different multiversal teams coming together, like a different Avengers, a different Fantastic Four, different X-Men group. Just seeing all these different teams come together, I could see that happening eventually, but just seeing a solo X-Men movie or something like that, I don't see it really happening. But now to Wanda's death. Again, don't think she's dead. I don't want to dive too deep into this, as I did do a full ending explained, post-credit scene explained, Wanda's future explained, Strange explained, MCU's future explained. I did a whole video on that, so again, check that out if you want to. The link is in the description down below. But I don't think Wanda's dead. My theory, quickly summarized, if you don't want to check out that video, is that I think White Vision will come in and save her eventually. I think that this is, number one, I think this because Elizabeth Olsen just signed a new contract with Marvel, and that means that she's coming back sometime soon. Also, in the comics, she does die. She disappears for a while, reappears, and then, you know, she's back in the main comics run. I think that'll something similar like that will happen in the MCU. I think she'll be more of a Magneto figure where she's good, she's bad, she's good, she's bad, she's middle, she's good, she's bad, she's good, she's bad. I think something along those lines will definitely be happening in the MCU. I'm excited for it, but I'm also a little bit worried because I think it worked with Magneto in the X-Men films, but you could really, really screw it up if you don't take your time with it. So I do think Wanda needs to be gone from the MCU for a hot minute now. I think that she needs to take her time away from the MCU, kind of letting us explore the multiverse without her. But when she comes back, she'll be more powerful than ever, needing basically not a whole multiverse, but a hell of a lot more people than just Doctor Strange to come back and fight her. But now I wanted to move on to talk about America Chavez. She was absolutely awesome in this movie. I think the actress's name is Xochitl Gomez. She was just phenomenal. I absolutely loved her in this film. I think that her backstory, it did feel slightly rushed, but after I thought about it more, I was like, okay, I think they gave her enough like screen time in her background, enough emphasis for now, especially if she's going to be a main player in the MCU, because we have the incursions occurring if people are traveling through different multiverses and stuff like that, if they're not doing it naturally. But we obviously know that from the post-credit scene, Clea, she can travel through the multiverse normally when she has that like slash thing that takes her to the dark dimension. America Chavez can do it naturally, but we also know that from what Mr. Fantastic mentioned, Strange was traveling through multiverses and he was causing a disruption and an incursion, which honestly, I'm kind of confused on the whole incursion stuff. I know it's a term from Secret Wars, I know all that kind of stuff, but I don't really understand the rules of it in the MCU, because Mr. Fantastic said that Strange is causing an incursion by going through the different multiverses, but he traveled through the multiverses with America Chavez, which is a natural way to do it, and it wasn't doing it through the dream walking thing, which is what he does at the end of the movie, and that's how he gets the third eye from the Darkhold. And same thing happens with Wanda and the Sinister Strange variant. So I don't really understand what the rules are for dreamwalking incursions, messing up the multiverse, but I think at the end of the day, maybe in the next movie, whatever multiverse project is next, I think they're going to generalize it to traveling through the multiverse in general does give you the risk of causing an incursion. And with that, they can just pick and choose what events and what multiversal travels do cause incursions. I think it is a cop-out, but I think that's the only way to really generalize it, especially if you have a lot of multiverse traveling. But again, going back to America Chavez specifically, I thought she was absolutely phenomenal in this movie. I think that the actress did what she could for her screen time, and I'm excited to see what she has in store for the future of the the MCU because I think her power set is just really, really cool. The way they introduce her is absolutely awesome. And also the way that they connect her and Doctor Strange is just really, really cool. I thought the one bit in the movie where they had like the look down memory lane thing, that really just connected the two characters so well in such a little amount of time, which I thought was just really, really cool. Not much else to say on America Chavez, just I absolutely loved her and I cannot wait to see more of her in the MCU. But I did want to move on, kind of ending off this video talking about just the action in general in this movie, because this is a super fast-paced, action-packed movie. It's a hell of a fun time, and I think that's one of the reasons why I'm having a hard time even deciding on what I think about this movie as a whole, because it was just so fast-paced that as I'm recording this video, I've only seen it once, and I'm watching it for a second time in a few days, and I'm very excited to rewatch it because I kind of feel like I'll get to sit back and relax a little bit more, kind of getting to understand the nitty-gritty parts of this movie. And for that reason, I will be doing a second watch review with my friend Brantley right out of the theater, so stay tuned for that video. Like and subscribe so you don't miss that. But as a whole, I thought the action was really, really good. It kept me engaged the entire time. My favorite fight of the entire movie, again, is that piano one, the musical one. I thought that was really, really sick. Notably, I do want to point out the Kamar-Taj fight scene and the Illuminati fight scene. I did already mention the Illuminati fight scene, so I want to focus a little bit more on Kamar-Taj. I thought that fight scene was so sick. Just, it felt like the very beginning of like an absolutely insane movie to come. And when Wanda pulled up and Shane was like, I'm not going to let you touch the girl, whatever, something like that. And she was about to like blast the shit out of Doctor Strange. And everyone on Kamar-Taj like came together, made a huge big shield for Strange. That was so sick. Kamar-Taj battle was absolutely awesome. And I do want to point out this one specific moment where it was like way after the Battle of Kamar-Taj where Wong is being held captive. And there's that one sorcerer that comes and I don't remember. They have the knife in their hand and they basically tackle the Darkhold off of Wanda and she's basically dream walking, I think that's what it's called, through a different universe. And this is the body that she takes over later in the movie to fight the Illuminati. But they basically take the Darkhold and stab the Darkhold. And it's just so sick. Like, I don't know what when she like, they turn into like ash and they like, there's like this one tear that comes out of them as they turn to stone. It is so, so cool. That scene just really stuck with me for the entire rest of the movie. And I really like these small moments that like accelerate the story, I guess. Like that one person like broke the Darkhold and that's what led Wanda to go to that main area where it's transcribed on the walls. That led her to the monsters and that led them to where the final battle is. I really like the way that they transferred from place to place, set piece to set piece, action piece to action piece. I like the way that they went through everything in this movie, and I think that's what makes the action so good, is that it feels like it's blended together and it's sprinkled throughout the movie really well. Like there's heavy exposition moments for sure, and I will not deny that, and I do think at times those are the slowest parts of the movie. I think those are times when the movie needs to breathe, but then you're like, oh, I can't stop paying attention because this is important exposition. Nevertheless, I do think that it's balanced really well, where it's like you have heavy exposition and then you have heavy action, and then you have a nice blend of it where it's like there's like that hand-to-hand combat moment between Mordo and Strange, and then they have this nice dialogue scene, and everything just works really well. But now I want to get to the end fight scene. I think the end fight scene is absolutely awesome. I don't think it's anything super huge or grand. I think it's more of a sympathetic ending, I guess, where Wanda gets to see the other variant of Wanda and her kids and those other variants, those kids. I noticed this. The variant that she takes over the body of for the Illuminati thing, right before she goes to fight the Illuminati, those kids are the ones that are singing to her, and they think that she's their mom. And it made me really, really sad when I realized that, because those kids are like fearing for their life when they're seeing this like broken down, practically zombie version of Wanda now. And it was just really, really sad to think about that. And I liked how they had those undertones of like, it was an action-packed movie for sure. It was action-packed, run and gun the entire time, never slowed down other than like small exposition moments. But at the end, it wasn't like some huge multiversal battle, you know? You had the fight with Sinister Strange, then you had Zombie Wanda, a little bit of fight here and there Zombie Strange fighting Wanda, a little bit of fight here and there, you know? Wong came up there, killed one of those monsters. Like, that was cool and all. But at the end of the day, the movie was resolved not through action, but through this heartfelt scene of Wanda to her kids and kind of accepting the fact that she is evil now. And like I said before, I think we're going to have this huge back and forth between Wanda and the MCU in the future where she's bad to good to bad to good. And I'm very, very excited for that. And in my opinion, it all feels very well deserved. Yeah, guys, those are all of my spoiler thoughts on Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Again, I'll be rewatching this movie very soon, so I'll be doing a second watch review then. I'll also be posting a bunch of other content regarding the movie, so hit that subscribe button, notifications on so you don't miss any time I upload a new video or I go live. Let me know your guys' favorite parts of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.